Hello everyone, my name is Boris, bringing you another VOD review. Today we will be making our way over to APAC and the Bilgewater Cup final lobby over there, together with JazLatte, who had a stellar performance throughout the weekend, putting up many second and third places, so let's see what was the key behind his consistency. We are playing with no encounter, therefore we can expect that the lobby might not cap as high, however in this dominant 3-star 4-cost meta you are never sure, as people, once they make it to level 8, can just start farming the 4 costs due to how many are being taken out of the pool. We opt to already make 10 as our units did not give us a clear direction. We picked up a Kog'Maw and can consider playing that as an out. We're also able to pick up some pieces of Slayers. However, generally if we opt to make 10 dispatch, that means we are most likely going to consider a loose streaking, have a rod, therefore we could consider some kind of Kaisa out. Coming up in our augment selection here. Now, Birthday Union is something that used to be a very strong augment, however, due to the nerfs of the TG coming at level 7 and level 9 cost being increased, and the meta favoring staying quite often on level 8, particularly in APAC, where they do opt to quite often go for the 3-star 4 costs, this augment's probably fallen out of favor. Raining Gold is also a decent econ option, especially in the comms that run many 4 costs. However, it is on the weaker side of the econ options. Well, Darken Artifact could give us a clear direction. Most prominent one currently would be to just go for the Darken Bow and choose to play into Bel'Veth Slayer's board, which we do have some pieces of the opener of already. Unfortunately, we do not have an upgraded unit. Scouting around, see too much value, see Ishtal Expeditionist. Some more stars are bored, most likely playing some kind of Lissandra board. Bandle Bounty, not something we want, and Gold Destiny would be quite a gamble. We have already made 10, so we are a little ahead on the econ. See also a Zaheen hero augment, therefore we see that some of the people who were playing around the heavy melee openers before when we scouted have opted to pivot. Therefore we are going to go for the Darken Artifact and slam the Darken Bow on our Qiyana for now. However, most likely we are going to be playing for Loose Streak at the moment, as our board is not... Well, we have the pairs picked up, therefore we have potential to spike. Generally, Qiyana is going to perform quite well with this artifact, especially if you can get some kind of an attack speed item on her. I'm going to opt to slot in Void right now, so we can also, if we are playing for this line, have the opportunity to have the Shelly come online as soon as possible. Now, there is a player with RFC that we might have to watch out. I'm not generally sure what it could be played into, other than... Seems to currently in the set the only champion to really like the rage extension is the Bel'Veth. We're about to pick up a Rek'Sai, which is going to be just a stronger option right now. Going to burn one of our removers to play the strongest board. Generally we can see how these players in these high tense lobbies are valuing to play for tempo as much as they can, and are not afraid to strategically expend their resources when necessary in order to keep up with the lobby and not lose too much HP. Now this comp generally can use very many of bows, cloaks and gloves. Glove is the only option available left for us at the moment. Now it seems that this player with the RFC is quite likely going to be playing into our line. Checking the Ishtal player, not going to be able to tell you what it is, but we are hoping that if we are playing for loose streak that they are not going to be full open on us, or we are considering the option to full open on them. However, we have picked up a Cho'Gath too, which hopefully should be able to hold the front line down for us for a little bit, in order to be able to rack up some wins, able to do so against this Bard Ishtal reroll player with too much value. Mapping out the board right away right now. And it seems that we are going at least one way. Everyone else seems to have cleared the way a little bit. Going to even slam components, trying to end the stage on a 2 streak here. Playing against an Ishtal player, we're hoping that they are weaker and they're able to pick up a win here. Unfortunately, that does not appear to happen. They have some upgraded units, while as we only have a Cho'Gath. That's not going to be a sufficient amount of damage. Also, we can see that he's positioned the Qiyana in a way. I'm not sure if the 4th row is explicitly necessary. However, it is in the back in order so that if it was in the front and it took some aggro, once the Kiana would die, as the Rek'Sai is in the backline, the backline carries would transition over to the Rek'Sai. Now we do get double belts, which most likely one of them would become Sunfire. Going to opt to reforge our Rod, or no? Playing around with the idea. We're going to go for Sunfire and a Hodge Slam. We would probably be looking, hopefully, to transition the second belt into some form of an anti-armor, as you are running quite a lot of physical damage in this comp naturally. And definitely want that sorted. Coming up with the next Augment selection, Luxury Subscription is alright econ option. However, generally you would be hoping to be able to capitalize on that 5 cost given. And our level 8 board does not run that many, one of them being Aatrox. This is an unlock. Therefore we have quite few misses. If we hit something like an Annie, we could not play around. Now the other options are quite a lot better. Sweet Treats, very good Augment. Could high roll another artifact that synergizes well with our Darkened Bow. Therefore potential to play into, and generally this comp can use very many items. And since this seems to be a lower item game, we definitely would be interested in picking up more items. Timely but Deadly, generally decent combat option for these melee comps, but I think we are in need of items. Now we do have the item options now. We have the Radiant Relics, which could be quite flippy. Therefore not sure if he's going to opt to go for it. This would be something better on something like a 2-1 where we can establish direction from it. Band of Thieves, something that could be used. However, we are not able to capitalize on these TGs right away, I believe. Therefore going to probably pass that up for the Sweet Treats. Let's see what JazLatte goes for. And it seems so that we're going to go for Sweet Treats. Coming up on the selections now. There was a one player with RFC Belvet, why not make it 2? Collectors generally could be good, provide us some little bit of extra econ. They're just going to go for the RFC. Should be quite good on Belvas, synergizing the attack speed together with the Darkened Bow. Here we are queuing up in a player with a Radiant Krakens and a QSSS and a Rek'Sai 2 already. Now that seems to me like to be a stronger Belvas setup. So let's hope that we are able to pick up our units before them. Finally reforge that Rod, as this comp generally. We can transform the Rod into a Rage Blade. However, it's not the most preferred option. We generally would prefer QSS and a Kraken's combo. Able to transition the items here again, using our resources in order to be able to maintain a strong board, and hopefully now that we are on lower HP, we definitely wish to close the stage out strongly. We have a Belveth on a carousel, and it seems that we are going to opt to go for it. This belt could be, this tier can be immediately transitioned into an item as well if we opt to go for a Spirit Visage and leave that cloak open for a potential shred if we do so. Able to pick up a Taric and a Wukong as well. Now Wukong is another form of a frontline we can run. In general, this comp is quite flexible with its frontline, where we can run Bruisers, we can run some Wardens if we hit a Braum for example as well. Going to go for a strong level 7 push right now. Trying to keep at the tempo, close out the stage and win. Another neat thing to note here is that generally Aatrox requires you to have a Hodge and a BT slam. However, well we're not close to BT. Generally the BT itself is not something, it's not the most item it's not item you're most excited for, right? It in itself is alright, however, well, Hodge is great. Hodge synergizes with your Vanquishers, but the BT is just a little lacking at the moment in the game. However, with the Darkened Bow, with the Darkened Artifact, any kind of, and the Hodge Slam, once you attack in 4 Slayers, you do have the sufficient amount of Omnivam to be able to unlock Aatrox. Now we have opted to transition also our items to Wukong, believing that with a couple of Bruisers, this Wukong is going to be stronger. Especially since we do not have 4 Void with the mutation. Otherwise I would believe that the Cho'Gath 2 would be stronger if we had some form of a Void mutation. Now we do get another Rod drop, which we do not like to see. I guess this would have to then transition into a Rage Blade plus a Giant Slayer. Playing around with the idea, yeah, alright, we're going to go for it. Again, trying to keep the tempo as high as possible, but especially since we are on 3-win right now, if we're able to string together some form of win streak, is going to provide us with the econ. As we are lower on the econ side, as we have taken a couple of econ options. On the last Augment option, we already roll all those best friends. Makes the positioning for this comp quite tricky. Duo Q could provide us with some form of little bit of an econ and maybe an opportunity to hit a 5 cost and a couple of items. However, we have sufficient amount of items, I believe already. This extra 60 HP that we would gain from the sweet treats with the extra couple of components is not that strong. Know your enemy, we have the damage jump already from Informer Janna Slayer and Adrenaline module. And this Precision of Grace Augment, while it can troll your positioning in some ways, we are keeping our Belvath safe and is going to just toss her with an even more attack speed as we do not have the scaling part right now. And it's generally very strong Augment in this comp, so we're going to push the levels, able to pick up the 2-star Wukong. Now, we also have picked up an Ornn, which we could consider to slot in the hopes to form another artifact. Yeah, we seem to do so, and we also tacked in the 4 Slayers, which should have fulfilled for us the condition to unlock Aatrox. Now we see that our contester also is sitting on a Belvath pair. And they have also managed to find a Swain, therefore we'll have to finesse our frontline a little bit, able to hit the Swain unlock. Now, since we do not have the other upgrades, and we do not particularly sitting on the gold, we might be considering docking down to 2 Slayers. Able to hit the Belvath too. This is very big for us. Now we should be quite stable for the rest of the stage. Gonna transition some of the items. Going to go full attack speed Belvath as the Adrenaline module gives us an extra damage jump for the amount of hits done. Just full attack speed Belvath going to smash through with these Darken Bow procs. Going to opt to go for a Senna with a Cloak here. Again, leaves us open for a possibility of a anti-armor and what could be a could be a QSSS to keep the Belvath safe as well. Considering what's the strongest board here, every single turn, as we are on this lower econ side, we always have to ask ourselves what our shop is offering. How can we make a strongest board? This would also give us an opportunity to make 10 if we opt to sell 2. Going against the Ishtal reroll board that has managed to cash out Brock 2. Now this Brock with the Radiant EG and the Radiant GA is going to just be a little too much for us. Our Nidalee gets the resets on the weaker side. However, our Ornn is already 1 turn away from printing us another artifact. Hopefully we get to use something that we can make use of. The Shelly too has been hit, and there also seems to be more Shellys out there, for we are going to be having to be playing around this Wukong for a while now. Also, we've sold our Rek'Sais in hopes of hitting the Belvath. Facing another Brock from the Ishtal expedition is the double Brock on the board. Again, do not have the power right now, as we only have 1 upgraded carry. But we are sitting on 5 Wukong, and it seems that we're going to be holding on to them. Now, as mentioned, the APAC loves their 3-star Forkers, therefore if we are scouting around, I don't think we saw anyone really playing around Wukong, except perhaps the other Slayer player. Able to pick up 6 Wukongs now, going to slot in that as just going to be another stronger form of frontline, giving a Taric, since it's a heavy AP meta Taric, very nice. Also able to hit a Fiddlesticks. That's, hey, we hit the Horizon Focus, this Fiddlesticks can definitely proc it, going to slam an IE and complete just the T-Claw onto the Wukong. Now, we were hoping for something that can use, and this is the way we can use. Otherwise, I don't think we would have had a user, but once we get this Fiddlesticks online, it's even better than a Swain, right? Swain would take some while, and 1-star Swain would not be always guaranteed to cast. However, Fiddlesticks is quite consistent at casting, and he does so earlier in the fight, and you do want to unload your damage as soon as possible. Unfortunately, this fight only hits the front line. However, if it's able to also, as we can see, he's frontlining him. If you're able to frontline him on the side of a corner carries, we're also able to get the CC on the back line and the damage proc now. Haven't managed to hit Ambessa yet either. Now there is the Wukong on the board of our contester. However, this seems to be our only option. As we are too poor to go level 9 in this game, we do not have an econ augment, so we're most likely going to be staying for level 8, trying to make the strongest board each turn in hopes of preserving lives. Against a Seraphine Lysandra board from YBY1, able to take it out as Belvet has managed to ramp. Our goal at the moment is to have sufficient strong enough of a frontline for the Belvet to be able to ramp sufficiently with a Darkened Bow and an RFC, gaining the damage jump through the dungeon module and be able to take our board down that way, as she is our only full carry right now. Also, we have a little bit of damage coming in from the healing from the 2 Darken coming in, healing us up to, this should be close to 3 lives already. Get a ghost fight here, which we are very confident in winning right now, it seems. Yeah, our Wukong was in front of their carries, which is great for us. Scouting around to see what other 3-star forecasts might be chased, and we've made our way to the top 4. Now, see a double Brock there. Shelly is contested, and yeah, this other Slayer player, we just have to hope that they do die. Now, our matchup is against the Brock, so we are assuming that we are going to be losing here. Yeah, it's a 2-star Brock plus another Brock and another Brock on the bench. They're definitely the biggest threat in the lobby right now, having all the items. The player contesting us is still alive, however, we have managed to heal up a little bit from that to Darken that should leave us still at 2 lives, so we're most likely looking for them to die and then just going to try to chase this 3-star Wukong. Able to pick up a Fiddlestick spare. Opt to go for a Bramble of West. Yeah, that is going to allow us to transition the Sunfire away from our main tank, make it a true main tank. And yeah, Bramble West is going to be quite good. And we see that the Ambassador was not hit, which is great news for us. So we're going to just go up to send it right now, as many 3-star as many forecasts are being pulled out, and we're able to pick up the Wukong from quite lucky levels and have dropped around all out to 4 HP. Very well recognized by JazLatte that he has to roll at that point, as this is going to be the point of highest odds. We're going to transition our Aatrox items, fully salvage the Aatrox, transition the Aatrox items onto the Wukong in hopes that he does enough damage. Able to also pick up a Aphelios, which is going to provide us that damage Sunder, and it's still a very close fight against the Brock player. Wukong transitions, alright, yes, a Wukong transition to the statue form, Belvet on the nick of an HP, able to have stacked up through that extra range of RFC, does not have to walk up and is able to pump out consistent damage. Now we are placing against the Demacia player of the Zahir. Now the thing with Zahir is that he is able to take these, if he is able to live through the damage, he can actually take down the Wukong, as he has the innate execute built on him. However, we have protected our Belvet and are able to pick up the round here. Now this is going to become down to the positioning tech between the players. Pick up a TG here. We have made our board, I would say, weaker, as we opted to sell, we had to sell the Aatrox in order to be able to transition the items. Trying to see where they are positioning so that in a way we do not get a wrap right now. However, our Belvet goes on the way to Zahir, and Zahir makes it to the backline and is able to take down the Belvet, so we do not have any form of sufficient damage. This Wukong is not doing that much damage, and it does seem that we toss around here because of that, as our Belvet dashed other way. However, very nicely played from JazLatte, recognizing the strength of, recognizing the places where he needs to adjust his board, play very flexibly, and the correct roll timings in order to capitalize on the highest odds and play for the highest EV, showing why he is so consistent in these highest tier games. I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope that you learned something new, just like I did, and I wish to see you in the next one. Have a good one.